What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into the Sports Forum's first of two 2025 NFL mock drafts. Riggs Tamburo, Bryson Owens. You guys can find us at Sports Forum CO on Twitter and Instagram, and then at The Sports Forum on YouTube. Do us a favor, click that subscribe button. We got a ton of content coming for you guys, especially around the NFL draft. We are live for all 4 hours on draft night as well, giving you our live predictions as the teams are on the clock and live reactions. So make sure you join us for that one there. But my man, with that said, what we're going to do today, and just a reminder for all you guys out there, we are going to do the draft as if what we think is going to happen in the draft, not what we want to happen. We will debate these picks. We will talk about it. We're going to go ahead and switch off on who gets to lock in the picks as well. We'd love for you guys to comment. Let us know if you agree, disagree with any of our moves, everything like that. But my man, with that said, let's go ahead and pull this up here. If you guys are sleeping under a rock, the Tennessee Titans do have the first pick. This is on PFF. So if you guys are looking for somewhere to do your mock drafts, go ahead and check out PFF. But with all that said, my man, jumping on into the clock here for the very first pick overall, the Tennessee Titans. I know I get to make my decision on this pick, but I would love to hear your take first.
Yeah, so I think one of the important things when doing this mock draft that you mentioned is we're doing it how we think it's going to happen, not necessarily what we think we would do if we were in this situation. Because I think us two individuals, would probably pick someone else that we don't see the Tennessee Titans taking right now. But I think all of the buzz around the world, I think the Titans are doing a really bad job of hiding who they're going to pick. I think everyone can just instinctually just know, even if you're not the biggest diehard draft fans in the world, you kind of know where the Titans are going here. Even, I don't know if you saw it, spoiler on who we're talking about, Cam Ward was on his Fortnite game, and he was on their live stream with fans, and fans were asking him questions, and they were asking for his favorite players, and he was someone asked who the top 4 running backs in the NFL are, and he said Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. Okay,
come on, bro.
Both Titans. And then they asked him about AJ Brown. He's like, AJ Brown's a dog, but he's not Calvin Ridley. It's okay, another Titan you just mentioned. So it really seems like it's going one direction here. Maybe not who I would take personally. I'm a little higher on other quarterbacks in this draft than I am on Cam Ward, but I can see why they would like him. The physical upside is there. The talent is there. He's young. He's still got a lot of development to go. So I can see why teams would gravitate towards him. It's not what I would do personally, though.
Fair enough. I mean, I think it's fair to say they're going to go quarterback here. But my question for you is, are they more likely to go with a Shedeur Sanders or a Jackson Dart, or would they be more likely to go a guy like Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter here if they don't go Cam Ward, in your opinion?
If they don't go Cam Ward, I definitely think they would be a prime candidate to trade out of the first overall pick. Maybe get a whole bunch of capital this year, some capital next year, build up the rest of the roster, and go with another year of Will Levis and let the chips fall where they may and see if they can land the number 1 overall pick again next year in a better quarterback class. So I think if they don't go Cam Ward here, they don't go quarterback at all in the first round of this draft, I think they would trade back, maybe trade with the team. Who knows? Maybe if Pittsburgh really wants one of these quarterbacks, Pittsburgh can come all the way up at 1 and take one of these guys. Or if the Saints really want a quarterback for this year, they can come up and get him at number 1 overall. So I think it's either at this point Cam Ward or trade back if you're the Titans.
Yeah, and once again, guys, we're not going to go ahead and put any trades on this board just because we want to go ahead and do it as it is. This is the first draft we've seen in how long, maybe ever, that there hasn't already been teams trading for the first pick, the 5th pick, all these different things. So we're going to leave it as is, but I think it's fair to say if anybody trades up here at number 1, it's either the Saints at the 9 pick to number 1, and or in my opinion, I think it's the Giants to go up there. If they're not sold on Shedeur and they really want Cam Ward, maybe they go ahead and do that. But assuming that it's the Tennessee Titans, Bryson, I'll be honest with you, brother, my pick would be Shedeur Sanders with the number 1 overall pick here. And if not, it would be Travis Hunter. Cam Ward is not in my big 2. But this is not what I think. This is what I think is going to happen in the draft. That is Cam Ward out of Miami going number 1. My man, you are on the clock here with the Cleveland Browns, the number 2 pick. It says the needs here: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tackle, and cornerback. Obviously, Travis Hunter, you and I have been very vocal that he is the best player in the NFL draft. But Abdul Carter, everyone's talking about, why wouldn't they want him? Why wouldn't they want him? I talked some shit last week. I got a lot of crap for it on YouTube for saying, look, man, they don't need another defensive player right now to rush the quarterback. I just don't think that that's their number one concern at this moment. But man, oh man, did the Browns fans come out of everywhere start telling me I'm an idiot and they need this guy and this is the best move, and fine. But in your opinion, Shedor's sitting there, Travis is sitting there. Do you want Abdul Carter?
This is another situation where if I were running the Cleveland Browns, I personally would probably lean towards the Shedeur Sanders pick here, just because you have such a mess at the quarterback position. I mean, you're paying Deshaun Watson a crap ton of money to either not be playing or play like the worst quarterback in football. And then your other option right now is Kenny Pickett, who, whether you like him or don't, he's not really a starting quarterback in this league. Shedeur Sanders will be a better quarterback in the NFL than Kenny Pickett is. So you have a chance here to solve the biggest need in franchise history. They've gotten the quarterback position right once in the last 4 decades, and they traded him away because they were impatient with Baker Mayfield. That was the only time they got the quarterback position right, and they let him go. So I personally would do the Shedeur Sanders thing. When it comes to that, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to land on either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. I get the Abdul Carter phenomenon, wanting him to pair up with Myles Garrett. This division that he's in, the Bengals don't have a very good O-line. The Steelers don't have a great O-line. They can contain Lamar Jackson. They play him a little bit better with another pass rusher, so I get it. But Travis Hunter is the best player in this draft, and if he's there at number 2, I don't see any world you don't pass him up. So I'm going to say they take Travis Hunter here. This way, they don't even need him to be the number 1 wide receiver and number 1 corner right away. They can roll him out as the number 2 wide receiver. They have Jerry Jeudy. They have David Njoku at the tight end. They can ease him in on the offense a little bit and still play him at what I think is his better position, which is the cornerback position. They have good corners too, so it's not like they're asking him to cover the number 1 wide receiver every game. So he can play both sides of the ball in Cleveland. I think he'll really like it over there. I think he'll like a lot of the players they have. I think he'll connect really well with what they have going on in Cleveland right now. And I think they'll look another day to solve the quarterback position. So I think it's Travis Hunter at number 2.
I got to ask you, though, if they go left field here, which I think the world would collapse if they did it and they didn't trade out, but I got to ask you about one of their needs right now. What about the number 6 guy on this board coming out of LSU? What about Will Campbell? Is there any world that this is one of the early shockers of the draft and people just go, really? They passed on quarterback, they passed on Travis, they passed on Abdul, and they went Campbell? Would this be looked at as a error from the Cleveland Browns or maybe a sneaky good pick from Cleveland?
I think it could be a little bit of both. Even if Will Campbell ends up being a pretty darn good offensive lineman in this league, you're passing up on one of the most talented players this league has seen come into the draft in a long time with Travis Hunter. And while tackle is a big need for them, there are question marks on whether Will Campbell can play tackle at the NFL level. He's got shorter arms, which is a big red flag for a lot of teams. Most people think he's better at the guard position. Guard is definitely not a position you take number 2 overall. So if you thought for sure Will Campbell would be an all-pro left tackle for the next 15 years, I don't think anyone would argue with you taking him. But because there are some red flags on Will Campbell physically, and you're passing up on such a generational talent like Travis Hunter, I think that would be a bit too far even for the Browns. So I don't think they do that. But if it was a surefire Hall of Fame tackle, I don't think anyone would question the move.
All right, my man. So your final pick, you're locking it in. Are we going Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter here?
Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter going number 2 to the Cleveland Browns. Now we are on to the New York Giants. And man, oh man, there's been a lot of speculation on what these guys are going to do. I know at the end of the day, they do want quarterback Shedeur Sanders. They've been going to these games, these practices since early fall last year. We were out at the Buffs games. We were out there in Boulder, Colorado, and the Giants were there. They've been watching this guy forever, man. And now obviously they've had meetings with him, and Dable really likes him, and there's a lot of positivity. We saw him there with Malik Neighbors, passing the football in the middle of the winter, before the whole Heisman thing and all the different stuff. So they really like Shedeur Sanders over there. But at this point, now Abdul Carter is available. You got guys like McMillan. Now, I don't think they're going to go McMillan, but I got to throw the name out there. Mason Graham, you could argue they could look that way a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen either. For me, this one really comes down to, are they going to go Abdul Carter or Shedeur Sanders?
I agree.
Bryson, who do you think they should go with?
I think they should go with Shedeur again, but because I think they're going to talk themselves into, well, we signed Russell Wilson, we signed Jameis Winston, we have the quarterback position solved for the short-term period. Let's build up this defense and have it be the best defense in the division. So I think they're going to go Abdul Carter here, build up probably one of the best D-lines in the entire National Football League. That doesn't solve your issue at the quarterback position. Like, your quarterbacks are still Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. So that's still an issue, in my opinion. But if I were running the Giants, Shedeur Sanders, who I think would already be gone at this point if I was running these teams, but he's there at number 3. That's what I would do it with the Giants pick, but I don't think that's where they're going to go. I think Daboll and Joe Schoen are really looking at the pick that can save their job this year. And I don't think a quarterback sitting behind these other 2 veterans solves their job needs this season.
Did you see that Joe Schoen, however you say this guy's last name, did you see that he came out there, the GM of the Giants, and he basically said, with the 2 quarterbacks that we brought in the offseason, a.k.a. Russell freaking Wilson, who I know a lot of you guys are not the biggest fans of. I've heard a lot of that over the last 2 years. But he basically came out and said, look, we aren't worried, because if all goes wrong and we suck this year, it's all good. We'll get the first pick next year. We'll be looking at Arch Manning. We have a lot of things on our plate. We're good. And I found that to be very interesting, that he almost said, like, I don't care if we lose. In my opinion, this dude's about to get fired anyway, so I don't really know what he's talking about at this point. But with that said, it made me wonder, like, will they go Shedeur Sanders here? It made me, first of all, think they're probably not trading up to 1, because they don't care about Cam Ward as much as they care about the other quarterbacks coming out next year. 2, if they do go Shedeur here, will they do that if they're looking at quarterbacks anyway? They already brought in 2 quarterbacks. I agree with you. I believe they should go Shedeur Sanders here, but I'm not going to waste any more time, my man. Unfortunately, I think they're going to find it to be a good deal for them if they go ahead and get that man Abdul Carter in this position. So I'm going to go Abdul Carter with the number 3 pick to the New York Giants. I don't love it, but I also can't say that I don't like it either. I think it's a good addition for the Giants. They need this. As long as they're not trying to win now, long-term, it's a good move.
Yeah, and it's really hard to pass up the general consensus number 2 player in this draft. Like, he may not be as valuable as the quarterback position is, but getting a really good pass rusher, and in that division, again, Cowboys O-line, kind of a mess right now. You never know with Washington's O-line. Phillies is always going to be good, but when you have a defensive line as deep as New York's already is, and then you add the second best player in the draft who happens to be an edge rusher, I think it's at least a good thing for the short term.
Yep, right there with you. All right, guys, Abdul Carter goes number 3 to the New York Giants. My man, we are looking here at the number 4 pick on the board. That is the New England Patriots needs right now. Running back seems to be the dire need. Wide receiver, also a big need, because Drake May got to throw the football to somebody, and then some offensive line as well. If we are looking at the top wide receiver, in my opinion, that is Tatario McMillan there out of Arizona. Shout out to the Wildcats. To me, this dude's an absolute dog, big-time future. They can't go wrong if they select this guy, but we've seen so many draft boards right now. They want Ashton. Everybody wants Ashton. You and I, we've talked about it. There's another running back on the board that we believe is just as good, probably going to have a better career than Genty. But in this position, in your opinion, both guys are available at this point. What do they do? Or do they go somewhere else?
I think they're going to go somewhere else because Ted McMillan is very, very good. And it's going to be hard to be upset about them taking McMillan number 4 overall, but he's also a very polarizing player. Some people have him as his wide receiver 1. Some people have him as his wide receiver 5. He is not a consensus anywhere ranking when it comes to the wide receiver position. Whereas we talked about him a little bit earlier. I know that you're going to need to get Drake May some weapons, but you also really need to protect him. This offensive line in New England, it's a mess. I think they're going to go with Will Campbell out of LSU. Again, maybe not the sexiest pick in the world. Maybe he has questions in terms of whether he can play tackle or move him inside. I think the great thing for the Patriots is their entire offensive line is terrible. So if he's not good at if he can't play tackle because of his short arms, they'll just move him to guard, and he'll be one of the best guards in the NFL. So his tape was amazing. He dominated the SEC at the tackle position. I see no reason why he can't be a long-term starter at the offensive line position for the New England Patriots. They really need to protect him, Drake May, so he doesn't get murdered every year there in New England. So I think Will Campbell is the pick there.
And you're not worried about the little dinosaur arms, huh?
I'm personally not. I think it's a little overblown. He dominated the SEC, which is the best conference in the world at the tackle position. And like I said, it's not like the Patriots' only hole is at tackle. If he's not good at tackle, they can just move him to guard and it'll be just fine. He can solve an issue along that offensive line somewhere. You don't have to pigeonhole him to be your left tackle if you don't need him to be.
All right, man. Well, I'm not going to argue with you here about Campbell. I don't love the pick because I feel like you could even trade back here to like 7 or 8 and maybe still get Will Campbell.
I agree.
But I know we're not playing that game here. If it's between Genty and him, I agree with you. But I do agree with you as well that I think the ceiling for McMillan, maybe not Neighbors, maybe not quite, but it's up there with this dude could be a dog, a Drake London type of guy kind of right out the gate. Or, like you said, he could just kind of be some overblown diva who doesn't quite get along with everybody, turns out to not be a great match, and then they go, damn, like we really left Will Campbell on the board. So, all right, my man, you going to lock in Will Campbell here from LSU?
Yep, I think Will Campbell's the pick here for the Patriots. Which is, I think they're bummed. I think the Patriots would have really liked if one of those defensive players we already had go. I think they would have loved if Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter fell to them at 4. But because both those guys are gone, I think Mike Vrabel is going to go the old school route, build up the trenches, and get Drake May an offensive lineman.
Classic Mike Vrabel. You and I have 2 very different takes on that, man. But we will get to that, folks, when the season gets a little bit closer. Now, we are moving on through here to our next team on the board, number 5 overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Needs wide receiver, tight end, maybe some D-line as well as a safety position here for the Jags. Now, to be fair, they need everything. So, I mean, you could argue that these guys these guys need to get a lot more than that. But assuming that they put wide receiver at number 1 on the board here, do you believe this could be a wide receiver spot at this point? Top receivers on the board. You got Luther Burden, who I know you are very high on out of Mizzou. You got McMillan. You got Emeka Ibuka there as well. Matthew Golden, one of the more sleepy wide receivers on the board. We saw Alec Ayo is what I call him, Mr. Minor. This dude teed off on Colorado. So we know what that man can do. I think there's a lot of really good wide receiver options here. Do you believe that they're going wide receiver, or with a guy like Jonty on the board, maybe a guy we'll pull up the tight end list here in just a minute, but there's 2 or 3 tight ends I guess you could look at, but not at number 5. So in your opinion, is this wide receiver? And if so, who do you like?
I don't think it's necessarily wide receiver here. I think they would like it, but they do have Brian Thomas Jr. as their number 1 wide receiver, who I think is going to be a legit number 1 for a long time. And I think there are 2 other positions I think they might be looking at. One of them, and again, this might be the worst kept secret in the NFL other than Cam Ward to the Titans. Mason Graham, the defensive lineman out of Michigan, has been working out in his private workouts in Jaguars gear. Like a viral video of him went by recently where he was doing private workouts in a Jaguars salute to service shirt. The Jaguars' defensive line's abysmal, so I think he makes a lot of sense here. I think that's probably where they go. It's a very boring pick, but he's arguably the best interior defensive lineman in this class. So I think that makes a lot of sense there. The other player I think might be a sneaky option here at 5 is Tyler Warren, the tight end at Penn State. They lost Evan Ingram, who was Trevor Lawrence's number one target over the last couple of years. Evan Ingram goes to the Broncos instead. And Tyler Warren can do a lot of what Evan Ingram did. He's not a great blocker like Evan Ingram wasn't, but you can line him up in the slot. He can run routes at the tight end position. He's basically, the term joker has gone around a lot in the NFL world this offseason, thanks to Sean Payton. He used that on an interview with Kay Adams, and everyone started using it all of a sudden. But I think Tyler Warren can replace a lot of what Evan Ingram did for the Jaguars. So I think Mason Graham is the pick, but a sneaky option might be Warren if they want to get that replacement for Evan Ingram.
Do you find that to be weird, though, if you get rid of Evan Ingram and then you spend the 5th overall pick on a rookie tight end?
Not necessarily. Evan Ingram was aging and he was injured the last couple of years. He was going to be expensive. Now you get a rookie tight end on at minimum 5 years. You get him for the next 5 years no matter what because of the 5th-year option. Yep. So you get time to kind of groom him. He's younger. I think he's probably at this point at minimum the same level athlete as Evan Ingram is. So I think you can replace Evan Ingram at a cheap cost right away.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I guess I have to make a pick here. I do want to throw out one more guy, and I want to pull up the wide receivers here really quickly because I know it hasn't been the most popular thing in the world, and I've caught some flack for it, man. But look, Luther is a phenomenal wide receiver. Obviously, I'm very high on McMillan, but I can't get over Emeka Egbuka, man. I really, really like this kid. I'm really high on him at wide receiver. To me, he's one step better, in my opinion, than Xavier Worthy. I think this dude's pretty good, bro. In my opinion, I think he's a little bit more disciplined. I think he runs a little bit sharper routes. Maybe you could argue he's not quite as quick agility-wise as Xavier Worthy, but outside of that, I think he's a better wide receiver than him. I wouldn't be shocked if this is the first spot in the draft where people go, whoa, really? That could happen here, and I don't think it's a mistake if they do that. But I'm going to go ahead and agree with you here on tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State. They have him ranked as the number 10 overall player. That's pretty fair. Him to go number 5 to the Jags. Let's get it done. There you go. You guys got your tight end back. My man, Las Vegas Raiders on the board. What are we thinking about here?
I'm going to keep this pretty short and sweet to save time purposes and because I think there's only one player in mind for the Raiders this year. It's going to be Ashton Jeanty. If he falls to them at 6, I think Pete Carroll at 70, whatever years of age, will run to the podium himself to announce the pick. He'll shove Roger Goodell out of the way to say that they're taking Ashton Jeanty because it's really the biggest weakness on that offense right now for the Raiders. I don't love a lot of what the Raiders have. They have a good tackle, good center. They have Geno Smith at quarterback. They have a good wide receiver, a great tight end. If they can add a really good, consistent run game, I think that solves a lot of issues for the Raiders. So I think it's Ashton Jeanty or bust for the Raiders at this point.
Interesting. The one thing I do want to ask you about here, though, really, really quickly is Shedeur Sanders still on the board.
Yeah, I think them trading for Geno, and it's not really Pete Carroll isn't a build up a rookie kind of coach at 70-something years old. I think he wants to rely on the veteran. Now nothing's come out of it yet, but the very first report that came out after the trade was that they were immediately working on a deal to extend Geno Smith. That hasn't happened at the point of this, at the point of our show, but I think they're gonna try and get a deal done with Geno and let Pete Carroll ride out the rest of his career with a veteran quarterback instead of trying to groom a rookie.
Okay. So you want to lock in Jeanty here, yeah?
Yep.
All right, man. Number 6 overall. Genty, there you go. The running back problem is kind of fixed. I wouldn't say all the way yet, but it's kind of fixed. Then we got the New York Jets on the board here. Quarterback listed, obviously, as one of the needs for them. Wide receiver, tackle, D-line as well. Mason Graham, man, still on the board here for us. That's a very interesting one. I think the guy out of Michigan is a very, very good player. Also, I do think it's worth mentioning, obviously, Shedeur Sanders on the board. Jackson Dart has been one that a lot of Jets fans are liking over there at quarterback. Wide receiver, once again, they're all still on the board here. I mean, McMillan, Emeka Egbuka, Luther. I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers here, a lot of ways you can go. Not based on what you think is going to happen. Your opinion, what's the move for New York?
I think the best thing that the Jets can do is surround Justin. If they want Justin Fields to succeed at all, because they have him on a 2-year deal, it's cheap, so they can get the most out of it, maximize that Justin Fields deal as best they can. I think a guy like Ted McMillan makes a lot of sense here. I think you surround him. They have Garrett Wilson, a legit number 1 wide receiver. Ted McMillan is a very different type of wide receiver than Garrett Wilson is. McMillan is a big body. You mentioned it earlier. A great comparison is the Drake London type of wide receiver. I think those two pair up together really well. McMillan maybe not as polished as you would like going number 7 overall to the Jets, but if you want this Justin Fields thing to succeed, I think you really need to get him some more weapons, or you go offensive line and go Armand Membu, the tackle out of Missouri, one of the best offensive linemen in this draft. You shore up the tackle position. You make sure Justin Fields is protected as best as possible. So I think they either go weapon like Ted McMillan or they go tackle with Armand Membu. That's what I would do.
This could also be one of the spots where any of the big 3 wide receivers could be the pick here, just depending on who they like. But I agree with you, man. You want to start talking about a dude who, not that you're trying to replace Devontae Adams, but the dude could fill that 1v1 big body role as well as the deep ball guy. I'm going to go ahead and go Tet here and not overthink this one. So there you go. Getting a wide receiver over there for Justin Fields. Some people throwing the quarterback situation still out there, not convinced by Justin. That just doesn't make sense here this early in the draft. So we'll see what happens there. But my man, the Panthers, wide receiver, edge, DB. What's going on?
I think the Carolina Panthers are going to focus on the defense here. I think they figured out some kind of groove offensively to end last year. I think they kind of like how young they are in a lot of those positions. So I think they're going to leave offense on the board in the first round. I think because we've let him fall to number 8 overall, I think they would, again, run to the podium to take Mason Graham, the defensive lineman out of Michigan. Again, probably the best interior defensive lineman in this class, one of the best defensive players in this class. Defensive line and edge are the 2 biggest needs for the Panthers, in my opinion, defensively. They could go corner with Jahade Barron, the corner out of Texas, pair him up with J.C. Horn. That would be a really good move as well. But because Mason Graham, who some people believe might be the second best overall defensive player in this draft, depending on how you feel about like Travis Hunter, what position he's better at, wide receiver or corner. Mason Graham's phenomenal. I think he solves a lot of their issues up front. So because he's still there at 8, I think they would be thrilled in Carolina to get Mason Graham.
No arguments from me on this one. We can go ahead and just lock that in. Mason Graham at this point, I agree with you. A steal. No reason to really even overthink that one. You just go ahead and take Mason Graham, say thank you very much, and move on to the next one. But I'm on the board here. We got the Saints in the building. I'm going to go straight to the quarterbacks here really, really quickly. Obviously, guys, Shedeur Sanders on the board, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, who also is kind of moving up in a lot of draft boards. But outside of that, you could argue running back, wide receiver. Well, Genty's gone at this point. I don't think they're going to go running back here. I do like the Hampton pick at running back, but I just don't think that they're going to do it. Wide receiver, now you got Burden, you got Egbuka. I think they would be more interested here if McMillan was still on the board. So, Bryson, brother, I'm gonna give him Shedeur Sanders, bro. If you want to argue me on this, please, I'd love to hear it. I'd love for you to talk me out because I want this guy to go somewhere else. But I just don't see how at number 9 he's fallen this far. I don't know how you let Shedeur Sanders go.
I agree. And I think the Saints are a candidate to trade up in the draft just to get Sanders. I think they really like him. The news of Carr and his weird injury this offseason makes this even more of a pressing matter. Carr is going to be easier to move on from after this year. So even if Carr can play, I think the Saints are more than happy to let Shedeur Sanders sit behind Carr for a year, let him learn from a veteran quarterback. You move on from Carr, move into Shedeur Sanders. You have a whole new coaching staff too. So it's not like the Saints have a veteran coaching staff that needs wins. They can bank on a year sitting a rookie quarterback and not have to worry about losing their jobs. So I agree. I think the Saints would absolutely be thrilled to get Shedeur Sanders at 9, especially because I think they're a candidate to trade up in the first round to get Shedeur Sanders anyway.
Yeah, right there with you. All right, guys, Shedeur Sanders going to the Saints at 9. Feels like a steal at this point in the draft. But moving on through here, Chicago Bears on the board. Caleb Williams saying that he needs some help this offseason. They are looking running back, D-line, and potentially safety. We'll go ahead and pull those up here in just a minute, my man. First thing you think about when you say, what do the Chicago Bears need to be a better football team next year? What position is it here?
Well, I think they would have. I think the first thing that comes to people's minds is Ashton Jeanty. I think they would move heaven on earth for Ashton Jeanty to fall to them at 10. I don't think they want to move up to get him, but I think they would absolutely be thrilled if they fell to him at 10. Because he's gone, I don't know if Omarion Hampton, as much as I love him, is worth the 10th overall pick in this draft. I think that's a bit rich for my blood for him. I think he's going to be an excellent running back. I think he has a chance to be better than Ashton Jeanty will be in the pros, but he doesn't fit what the Bears need at the running back position, in my opinion. I think he and Swift might be a little too similar in a lot of ways. So I think they might be looking at either defensive line and shore up that line, make sure that their edge Sweats isn't the only one being able to get to the quarterback. I think they could go D-line or edge here. And if they go edge, which I think they could do, I really like Mike Green, the kid out of Marshall. I know he went to a small school. I know that's a red flag for a lot of people. He has all the physical traits in the world to do well in the NFL. He was hyper productive. And the few times they played bigger schools, he was dominant in those games too. So I have no worries about him going into the NFL. I think they're going to go edge if Ashton Jeanty is gone at this point. And I think Mike Green is going to be the first name that people go, oh, that's not a name that we're familiar with. And I think their initial grades might not be as high as I think it should be. But I think getting this kid's a no-brainer for the Bears. So I'm going Mike Green.
You know, I like me and Mike Green here, but I got to tell you, I'm a little bit surprised with Malachi Starks on the board that you didn't give him just a little bit of love there. I like Starks a lot, and I think this kid's going to be really good in the league. In my opinion, they do need safety pretty darn bad there. How many games last year did we see 30-something getting put up against the Chicago Bears? I'm tired of seeing those guys get beat deep. The tackling is just horrendous in the secondary. So I do like Malachi here, but it's your pick, my man. So if you want to go Mike Green, we'll lock in Mike Green.
And I get the Malachi Starks thing. I think he would be an excellent addition to the secondary that has a lot of talent, especially the cornerback position right now. I think that they just want to shore up that defensive line in a division that you need good defensive linemen, because a lot of the teams in that division, they can run the football. A lot of them have good offensive lines. You're going to have to get to the quarterback in this division to be successful. And I think the only player on that team that can get to the quarterback is Sweat for them. So I think they're going to get a guy who can help him out.
There you go, guys. We're going mean Mike Green, number 10 to the Chicago Bears. Like Bryson said, I think that's one of the few picks so far through these first 10 that people are going to go, who? What? But if you pay attention to football, you're thinking, okay, I like that. So, all right, guys, good pick there from the Chicago Bears. Then time for the San Francisco 49ers on the board here. Guard, tackle, D-line, and cornerback. A lot of different things could happen here. A lot of guys on the board. I'm going to go ahead and just let you throw out your favorite two names for the San Francisco Giants here. Or, I'm sorry, holy Lord, the San Francisco 49ers.
So the Niners are a fascinating team this year because they need a starter at pretty much every defensive position group this year. Their defensive line's rough. The corners are rough. The safeties are rough. Like, linebacker is rough. Like, they could use a starter pretty much everywhere on that defense. And while Armand Membu is still there and he's the top tackle left available, and they do need to shore up that offensive line for Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, for whatever reason, doesn't draft offensive linemen high. He either goes and gets free agent offensive linemen or makes a trade, or he makes a fourth-round offensive lineman work for him. So as much as I think Armand Membu makes sense for him for the Niners here, I don't think that's what they do. I think they either look at Jahadi Barron from Texas, or they go with Jihad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. I think those are the top two names for the Niners here with all the needs they have on that defense.
Interesting. Okay. I feel what you're saying here. I do think of the names that you're throwing out there. I do think that Jahdae Barron is just a bit better, in my opinion. I think the guy has a little bit more promise, showed a little bit more in college. You're coming out of Texas. That's a bad Texas team. Now, they were led by Quinn Ewers, who sucks. So I'm not surprised they didn't win the whole damn thing. But Barron did his job. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to lock him in here. I do want to actually really quickly just go ahead and pull up the other cornerbacks that are available at this point that you could go ahead and argue. Obviously, Will Johnson here. You got Trey Amos. You got Benjamin Morrison. All these guys are good, man, but they're not Barron. So we're going to go ahead and go Jahdae Barron in this position here, number 11 to the San Francisco 49ers on this one. Then, my man, Jerry's World, they're going to go ahead and pan to the lair inside Cowboys Stadium, and you're going to see Jerry Jones sitting at his table getting ready for his big old pick there. Number 12, they need running back, wide receiver, guard, and edge. They also need a quarterback, by the way, but, who am I? With all that said, they really want Genty. We talked about it on the show the other day. We could see the Cowboys being one of the few teams that trade up there early, maybe to number 5 with the Jags or something, and they go after Genty. That could happen. But assuming they pick at number 12 here, Genty's off the board. What do you think they're doing?
I think Omar Hampton would make a lot of sense for them at number 12. But again, this is Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones tends to not do things that make sense. I think they're going to go and get a wide receiver here because it's a big need. No one would argue with the Cowboys taking a wide receiver. By the way, I think it makes a lot of sense for them too. CeeDee Lamb needs some help. The dude can only do so much for this wide receiver room. I think they're going to go with Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. Again, the Cowboys like to take their Texas boys. They have a lot of kids either who went to a Texas school or are from Texas on that roster. I think Golden is a nice complement to CeeDee Lamb. They're different types of receivers, do different types of things. So I think that is I think Jerry Jones would be very happy with himself. And I think he's going to feel like he outsmarted people by taking Matthew Golden at number 12. Jerry,
my brother. Let me tell you something. I don't know how you look at Burden, Egbuka, and Ao Manor, and you take Golden. I'm sorry, brother. I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Texas boy. I would be laughing about this one on the live show if that's what happens here, because I just don't know how you pass on, especially the big two, Egbuka, Burden, my opinion, clear better wide receivers than Golden. You could say that Ao Manor is not necessarily, but I think he's right there. I actually think he is the A- version of Ted McMillan, in my opinion. So I think AO is being slept on here. But anyway, Matthew Golden, it's your pick here, my man. Like I said, there's 3 wide receivers I would take over Golden. But do you think that's who Jerry's going to lock in there on draft night?
I think that is who Jerry Jones is going to pick.
All right, guys, there you go. Matthew Golden locked in there. Wide receiver, Dak Prescott getting himself another wide receiver that he can hit in the flesh. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on through, Miami Dolphins guard, tackle, D-line, and cornerback are the needs here for them. and, a million other positions. Who knows? They could go Jackson Dart here for all we know, Bryson. But with that said, my man, your number one thing that's going to help the Dolphins just get over that hump and either make the playoffs and win a game or even go a little bit deeper than that, what do you think it's going to take here from this team in the first round?
As much as that defense needs a lot of help right now, I think there is one name and one name only the Dolphins are going to look at right now because he's still around, and that's Armand Membou. I think Armand Membou might be the most pure NFL-ready tackle in this draft. I think he's phenomenal. Their best offensive lineman just retired with Teron Armstead gone. Tua, we know all of Tua's issues in his career with health, and you're always worried when he gets hit. I think you take the best tackle and you take arguably the best tackle in this draft. You shore up that offensive line and you give Tua some hope of protection for next year. So I think Membou is the one that I think makes the most sense for them here.
Really? I'm a little bit surprised. You just dove straight in there. You ain't even gonna mess around a little bit and see if there's someone else on the board here. I don't not like what you're saying at all. I just, when I look at it, guard, tackle, D-line, cornerback, the one guy that's still here is Walter Nolan, and a lot of people are pretty high on this guy, to be quite honest. Even Starks, I know they don't necessarily need safety per se, but I don't think it's a bad pick at this point in the draft. But I'm going to go ahead and agree with you here on Membou. I think that if they're trying to build to win football games, that's what they got to go with here. So Mizzou getting a guy off the board there at number 13 to Miami. Then you got the Colts who, in my opinion, have like the worst quarterback in football. They also need a tight end. They also need a guard, maybe a guy on the edge. Linebacker wouldn't hurt, and you never know. Malachi Starks is still sitting here as well. What do you think the Colts are going to go with here? I'm going to go ahead and just throw out my pick really quickly here. I do like Malachi Starks to go ahead and go here. I don't hate Jackson Dart, to be completely honest with you, but I want to throw out the name Colston Loveland here because I think if they are going to go tight end, it's not a bad spot to do it.
I 100% agree, and that was the name I was going to mention. If Tyler Warren doesn't fall to them at 14, I think they're taking a tight end in the first round anyway. Colston Loveland, by the way, not a bad second option to take at the tight end position. The dude's very, very good. Very good tight end. He's a better blocker, in my opinion, than Tyler Warren is. And while I agree that their quarterback position right now is abysmal, they're going to give it a go another time with Anthony Richardson. They're going to make him compete with Daniel Jones. If you're a Colts fan, I don't know how you're not crying every day thinking about that competition between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, but they're going to try and put him in the best position possible. And their biggest weakness on offense in terms of the skill players is tight end. I think Colston Loveland's the pick.
There you go. No argument here. Colston Loveland locked in an overall number 26 ranking, but he's going number 14 off the board. Wolverines getting one off the board there. Then 15, you got the Atlanta Falcons coming in here, wide receiver, center, edge, and linebacker. We still got Nolan on the board. We still got Starks on the board. Campbell still on the board here. But if they are going to go wide receiver, which is one of the biggest needs according to some lists, even though they actually did pretty decent last year, Drake London still needs help here. Burden, Egbuka, are they going one of those two, or are you going somewhere off the board here?
I think they're going to look on the defensive side this year. They shocked everyone by not taking a defensive player last year when they took the quarterback that they took. So I think they're going to look at the defense on this year's draft. And I think the player that it's a bit of a reach because of health concerns, but the dude can play middle linebacker. He can play off the edge. He's a very versatile player. When healthy, one of the best defensive players in this draft. I think the Falcons are going to be looking at someone like Jihad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. I think he solves a lot of the issues that defense has right now.
I'm not going to argue with that. I think this is one of those teams as well that I just feel like their defense, kind of like the Bears last year, their defense just burned them. I'm too tired of watching these guys get too many points put up on them. They can't stop nobody on third down. You need a really commanding, strong, smart linebacker. How many other dudes are smart if they're coming out of Alabama, bro? Bama breeds dogs. They breed smart, disciplined football players. They need one here. no argument for me. Let's go the number 11 ranked guy on the board, going number 15 overall, Jihad Campbell, linebacker, Alabama, to the Falcons. Then you got the Cardinals, who, in my opinion, need damn near everybody, but it says they need guard, D-line, and cornerback here. Once again, you got Nolan on the board, Starks on the board. I'll be honest with you, Bryson, I'd be shocked if it's not one of those two, but guard is a need here for them. And I mentioned it on the show. I think running back here, Amarion Hampton, is a steal for the Cardinals, but I've seen him on no boards so far. What do you think they do here?
I think they're going to either look to trade back, but because we're not doing trades in this draft, we're going to stick with the Cardinals at 16. I think they're going to look at either Walter Nolan and Will Johnson. And personally, while Walter Nolan has a lot of the traits you like, I don't think he was as productive as people would have liked him to be in college. Despite having all the traits you like, he's maybe a little bit lacking in the run department on the defensive side. He's a good pass rushing defensive lineman, but he's a little weak against the run, in my opinion. I think they look at Will Johnson. I think before all this draft process started, Will Johnson was like competing with Travis Hunter for the number one corner in this draft for a long time. And then Jahadae Barron kind of came out of nowhere and jumped Will Johnson. I think he's still a phenomenal football player. Day one starter for them at the cornerback position. I think they're going to go Will here at 16 overall if they don't trade back.
I think the Cardinals could be just one of the more no one has any idea what they're going to do with this pick at 16. And I do agree with you. There's a world they trade back, but I also think that they need so many things that you could argue that's a reason to trade back, but it's also a reason to go get a good player and know that you got better tonight in the first round of the draft. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and stick to it. I really like Hampton, the running back here. I think it's a sneaky pick. My second pick is Starks. But this is your pick, my man. Are you going to lock in cornerback Michigan, Will Johnson?
Yeah, I'm gonna lock in the corner out of Michigan. I think he's going to be a phenomenal pro for them for a long time.
There you go, guys. Moving on through here. Bengals are on the board at number 17. The number 8 and number 9 ranked players are still on the board. You got quarterback Jackson Dart still on the board. Not that they're going to go quarterback, but just throwing it out there. Then they need guard, D-line, and linebacker here. Well, at this point, you got Kenneth Grant, another Michigan player. Could Michigan get 3 guys drafted in the last 4 picks? Maybe they could go ahead and get that done here, but you still got to talk about it. Nolan is sitting here. I know you just talked about him, but he's the number 8 player. They're the number 17 team. They got to start getting to the quarterback a little bit more, in my opinion, stopping the run a little bit better, in my opinion. Could Nolan be finally getting off the couch here at the number 17 pick?
Yeah, I think this is a good spot for Nolan. He does solve a lot of the issues going on in the defensive line. They messed up his last name. As Ezeraku.
There you go. I think you got it.
The edge out of Boston College. The whole thing going on with Trey Hendrickson right now, whether he's gonna be a Bengal or not, that's an interesting debate. I think that he's an option. The only other guy I would probably throw out there is Jalen Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia. He's very similar to Jihad Campbell, who went earlier in our draft, can play middle linebacker, can play on the edge. So those are the 3 names I would throw out there to you: Walter Nolan, Donovan, or Jalen Walker, and I'll let you pick who you think fits the Bengals the best.
Jalen Walker, man, that's not a bad pick. But I got to tell you, man, I think at this point, if I'm Cincinnati, if Nolan is still sitting here, I feel like I'm winning if I take this guy. So I'm going to take Nolan. I think he's listed this high for a reason. I also think he's fallen in our opinions for a reason, but I think this is the point where you just do it, bro. Just take Nolan here. I don't think anyone's going to be upset with that pick, and I don't really see him being a flop of a pick. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Walter Nolan, but I think you made a good pick with a few other options there as well. Then center, guard, edge here for the Seahawks. Pick number 18 overall. Seahawks last year started hot, kind of got worse, had some depth issues, kind of struggled in a lot of different departments. What's the move here? I think the door is kind of open for Seattle.
Yeah, I think they're another team who could be a candidate to trade down to the draft. They don't have a ton of
Mm,
massive needs, and a lot of their needs aren't really first round players that would solve it for them. I think they can fill out a lot of their more pressing needs in the later rounds. So they're another team that's a candidate to trade back. I think as good as Malachi Starks is, it's weird that he's still on our board. But their
yeah.
secondary. I think they like their secondary in Seattle. I think they want to keep it the way it is. I think this is a good option, good place for Donovan Ezeraku, the Boston College edge rusher. I think this is a good spot for him to go.
I'm not going to argue with that, brother. I really like Donovan here. No argument from me. Like you said, Starks, a little bit surprising, but this isn't the team that needs Starks. So I'm going to go ahead and let him go as well. There you go, locking that in. Number 19, Tampa Bay are on the board, edge, linebacker, and DB. I will say, since we did just go edge there, I think that's the guy that Tampa wants in that spot. So let's go ahead and look at linebacker and DB here really quickly. Obviously, you could argue Starks here makes a lot of sense for them, but you do have to go ahead and consider a few other things. You got Jalen Walker still on the board, Amos still on the board as well. In my opinion, it's between Starks and Walker. Let's go ahead and add safety here to this list. Between these two guys here, or maybe one that I haven't brought up yet, what's the move for Tampa Bay?
Starks or Walker
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense for them. He is a exceptional playmaking savior in that position. And kind of the lack of depth was really apparent for the Bucs late in the year. So I think this is a good place for Malachi Starks to go.
You know, I do too, but I tell you what, Bryson, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21 and I see Stark starting to fall a little bit, I might have to start considering something here if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. They could really use a Malachi Starks. I don't think it's a bad spot, but let's go ahead and go with the best player on the board. I agree with you. As good as Jalen Walker is, this does feel like a good spot for Starks to get off the board. If I'm Tampa, this feels like a steal to me. I'm going to lock in Starks here. Now, I'm going to say nothing, my brother. I'm going to let you run the table with this one. This is your Denver Broncos. I think you and I are on the same page on this one. So take it away, brother. What is Denver doing at number 20?
I think the Broncos, before they picked up Evan Ingram, were need any of the tight ends. I think they're going to look at one of two, maybe three players here. I'm going to throw three players out that I think the Broncos would be really interested in, and I'm going to see while I'm discussing them which one I think fits their most immediate needs right now. That is Omarion Hampton. I think he makes a ton of sense for Denver. Running back is the biggest weakness on this team right now, and he's the best running back available. I think he would be excellent in the blue and orange. You got Luther Burden still there at Missouri, the wide receiver from Missouri. I think you pair him up with Cortland Sutton, Evan Ingram, and Marvin Mims, and this pass-catching group looks really dangerous for Bo Nix all of a sudden. Or maybe a bit of a flyer, Kenneth Grant, the defensive lineman out of Michigan. The Denver defensive line, a lot of them are free agents after this year. So we may see someone from that defensive line leave after this season. Kenneth Grant, excellent in the run game. He's good enough at getting to the quarterback too, where you can kind of develop that for him. I think they're going to look offense though, as much as I think Kenneth Grant makes sense here. I'm going to go Omarion Hampton.
Is Omarion Hampton
in the second or third round? Hampton's the best. Hampton's the best. Yeah, Hampton's the best running back available at this point. He fits this offense really, really well too. Like I think he'll walk in day one, be the starter, be the guy for the Broncos. So I think Hampton is where I'm looking at.
I know Hampton is who we want, brother, but is that what Sean Payton's going to do?
Yeah, I think so. I think deep down, Sean wants to run the football, but I think Sean knew last year the running backs weren't good enough to run the football consistently.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
Omarion Hampton really gives them that juice. Because you look at the best years towards the later part of Drew Brees' career, it was
Yep.
with Alvin Kamara, with Evan Ingram at the running back position. They ran the ball really well. I think that makes too much sense for the Broncos to pass up on Hampton.
Mm. I like what you're saying, brother. Locking that in, guys. Omarion Hampton. We've been on this one forever. We also believe that he is better than Ashton Jeanty, especially from a career point of view. We believe this guy's a steal. So if Denver gets him at 20, I think it's a great pick. Now, I do want to throw out there, my man, with my Pittsburgh Steelers at 21, two guys that just went off the board that I think are very much in Pittsburgh's play here is Starks and Hampton. If either of those two dudes drops to 21, I do think that they very likely are going to go ahead and take one of those two guys. But now that they're both gone, you got to start to ask yourself, what are they going to do here? Well, they do need quarterback, running back, tackle, and safety. Josh Simmons, Banks Jr., Zabel, all those tackles are very good players, and they are all available. I don't think that they go with Gray in this spot. No offense to him, but coming out of North Dakota State, they had a great year, as they always do. That's not Ohio State and Texas football to me. So I do like both these picks better. Then you got Winston here, the safety. You got Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, pretty decent safety as well. And let's not forget about it, brother. We could talk Cam Skattebo here as well as a total sleeper. I don't necessarily think they're going to do it, but I think Skattebo could be like a weird left field kind of pick for Pittsburgh. But finally, I do want to go ahead and talk about the quarterbacks very, very quickly, because I don't think we can go without talking about it. Even though they're not as high ranked as a lot of the other players here, you have to ask yourself, Jalen Milroe, in my opinion, I've compared him a lot to Jalen Hurts. People don't agree with that, but I think he could be a Jalen Hurts kind of quarterback. Will Howard, I'm not as high on Will, but he's got a good build, very Big Ben type of build. I could see that being Tomlin's look. Then Riley Leonard. I'm not a Riley Leonard guy. I'm not a Tyler Show guy. I like Dylan Gabriel. He's not a first-round pick. Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe. If they go quarterback here, which of those two guys do you think they lock in? And by the way, are you surprised to see Jackson Dart listed as the fourth best available quarterback right now?
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things to know with the rankings for this one is it's Pro Football Focus's rankings. They rank players on a very different scale than a lot of traditional player rankings. I think most people would have Jackson Dart as the third best quarterback in this class, behind Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. If they go quarterback, and if they take Jalen Milroe, I'm sorry, Riggs, your Steelers deserve an F- for the rest of the year. I think Jalen Milroe is a terrible quarterback. I don't think he's a quarterback in the NFL. That's my opinion. I don't think he's good. I think he's not a first-round player. And if the Steelers take him in the first round, I would be – if I was a Steelers fan and I saw that, I would be crying the entire time because I don't think Jalen Milroe is good enough. So I think I think at this point for the Steelers, a lot of it depends on if they have signed Aaron Rodgers by now. Because at this point, Aaron Rodgers isn't a Steeler. I think if Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler, that changes the direction of this pick. So do you want me to assume Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler in this situation?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, first of all, just to throw it out there, I don't think it changes anything.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I guess technically, you could say if they have Aaron and Starks or Hampton's available, then I think it does change something. But to me, if they want Dart, I think they want Dart either way, personally.
Okay.
So also, if Shedeur's here, God bless America. But for the hypothetical, let's say yes, they have Aaron Rodgers.
Then that does personally change things for me because I think if they have Aaron Rodgers and Shedeur isn't there, I think they focus more on building the rest of the team. And I think they could go running back. And if they go running back, I don't think it's Cam Skattebo. I think it's probably Trevion Henderson, who's built up a lot of hype in the NFL pre-draft process, tested very well. He's a very, very good pass catching wide receiver or running back. He, I think, he's a different type of running back than they've had over the last couple of years than with Najee Harris. I think he would do really well for Pittsburgh. So personally, I think they could go running back. I think they could build up that offensive line as well with one of the tackles. So I think if they have Aaron Rodgers, they build up the rest of that offense in some way to kind of fit him.
Interesting. I don't hate the Travion Henderson pick whatsoever. I think you're definitely onto something with that one. Once again, dude, the door is just so open here. I mean, I think they want Starks, Hampton, and or Shador. If all three of those players are gone, you really got to just start asking yourself here. Because like I said, I do think Dillon Gabriel and I do believe Jalen Milroe, in my opinion, should be available in the second round. And so if they want to go with one of those two guys, like you mentioned, if you go Jalen Milroe here at 21, I might fall out of my chair, brother, to be completely honest with you. I mean, maybe Dart's gone and they feel like he's the next best quarterback and whatever. But at that point, that means that one of the other players that's up here is the best available and you would just take the dude. So in my opinion, you're good to go there. The other guy I want to throw out there, and it's not being talked about, but assuming George Pickens is not gone yet, because if he is gone, it changes everything. But if he's not gone, I still think Emeka Egbuka is a steal at number 21, and I'm happy with that. It could be Henderson. It could be Egbuka. It could be Dart. I don't think they can really miss here, Bryson, to be completely honest with you, bro. There's so many good options, but let's just go ahead really quickly and go right back up to the top here. Kenneth Grant still available. Simmons still available. If you had to go one of those two guys in your Pittsburgh, what do you do?
If I were Pittsburgh, I would go with the offensive lineman and try and help out Aaron Rodgers. But Kenneth Grant does seem like a very Mike Tomlin pick. Get the really good defensive lineman, shore up that defensive line with TJ Watt and all the other pass rushers they have, dominate in the trenches in that respect. The Kenneth Grant pick with him still there seems like a very Mike Tomlin move to me personally. I would go tackle. I would shore up that offensive line and make sure Aaron Rodgers doesn't get touched at all, as much as you can next season. But I don't think you can go wrong either way with Grant or Josh Simmons.
Dude, I don't even know what I'm gonna do here, bro. I feel like I'm on the clock right now, which I technically am. So with that said, I guess I'm gonna go with. You know what, bro? I'm going to go left field here. I'm going to go Simmons because I'm tired of having these old man, horrible depth guys to protect quarterbacks. I'm just tired of it as a Steelers fan. I think if we're going to build long-term, no matter who we get at quarterback, if it is Aaron, if it's a rookie in the second round, you got to protect the guy. You just brought in DK Metcalf. Hopefully you keep George Pickens. Hopefully you're bringing a new running back. People got to start protecting people, bro, and you got to start somewhere. 36-year-old offensive linemen aren't going to do the job for you any longer. So with that said, painfully, actually, to be honest with you, I'm going to lock in Josh Simmons there out of Ohio State, but I think there's a lot of options. Then Chargers, number 22, wide receiver, tight end, and D-line. Luther Burden is on the board, my brother. Is this where he gets off?
No, because Jim Harbaugh sees his Michigan Wolverines still there, and Jim Harbaugh is old school, builds in the trenches. He wants to play physical, smash mouth football. Everyone knew that last year when they took the tackle Joe Alt instead of Malik Neighbors. They knew that he wasn't going to build these weapons up for Justin Herbert. I think he's going to go Kenneth Grant here. That defensive line needs a lot of help. It's not very good right now. They let go of Joey Bosa. They lost their interior defensive lineman in the offseason as well, Poona Ford. So Kenneth Grant, kid that Jim Harbaugh knows really, really well, recruited him, coached him. I think that's the pick there for the Chargers.
I think you're right about Harbaugh. Yeah. I don't think he can leave a Wolverine off the board, man, especially because he probably recruited that guy, to be fair, in college.
He recruited him. He coached him. I think Harbaugh is going to see a Michigan Wolverine on the board in this draft at some point. It could be if Will Johnson falls. It could be Kenneth Grant that we just mentioned. Maybe Colston Loveland falls to them at 22.
That's crazy.
I think he's going to take a Michigan Wolverine in some way in this draft.
Okay. I actually agree with that. If Loveland's there, they're taking Loveland.
100%.
That's a given. So, all right, man. Then the team that I said, in my opinion, very well could be considered the team with the most to lose or gain in the first round, the Green Bay Packers, wide receiver, edge, and cornerback. Look, I'll go ahead and pull up the options in just a minute, but you guys are looking at the best options on the board. A lot of those are wide receivers. Luther Burden, the third, Emeka Egbuka. Then you go ahead and look, and you got Pierce Jr. on the board here. You got Jalen Walker, by the way, linebacker, still on the board. I think a very good player to be on the board at this point. My man, I got to be honest with you. I think it's Egbuka here. If I'm Jordan Love, that's who I want. But who do you think they take?
I think the Packers are in love with who they have at the wide receiver position. I think they love the fact that they have 4 number 2 wide receivers and they don't have a number 1. I think that they are perfectly content with where they are at the wide receiver position. I think Egbuka or Burden makes a lot of sense for them. I think they do need a legit number 1. I just don't think it's what the Packers want to do. I think Jalen Walker makes the most sense here. That defense needs some help. Wow. He can play edge. He can play middle linebacker. He's very, very good all the way around. I think he would solve a lot of issues that defense has right now.
Oof. Okay, so we're going to go with one of the positions not listed as a need for the Green Bay Packers in the first round at number 23.
Huh? It's kind of not listed because he's listed on here as a linebacker, but he has played both on the edge and middle linebacker for Georgia, so he can do both. That's why I think you take him, and if he's more comfortable at the NFL level at the inside linebacker, well, you have a really good middle linebacker there. But if you can move him to edge, I think that solves a lot of issues for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I mean, between Pierce Jr. and Walker, I agree with you. As good as the wide receivers are, there's enough wide receivers still on the board that I think you're going to get a decent one in the second round if that's really what you want there. So moving on through here, Jalen Walker is the pick we're going to lock in here, guys. But it could be either of these two truly to go to Green Bay. We'll see what happens there. Vikings at number 24, running back, D-line, and DB. Running back right now, Cam Skattebo, the best on the board technically. Samson, Johnson, Travion Henderson still on the board here as well. He kind of gives me that Dalvin Cook a little bit, just saying. Travion Henderson here. D lineman, once again, going to go ahead and pull that up. You got Norman Lott, you got Williams, you got Harmon on the board as well. Honestly, sleeper here as well out of Toledo, Darius Alexander, in my opinion, a very, very good player. And finally, going to go ahead and throw in some cornerbacks as well. My man, what's the pick here?
I think they're going to go Derek Harmon here. I know he's a little bit lower listed on this ranking, but dude's a beast. He is one of the best defensive linemen in this class. He has all the physical traits you need. Sure, his production wasn't quite at the level you would have liked it to be, but dude is a physical freak of nature at 6'5", 310 pounds. He's a monster in the interior. Defensive line is an area of major need for the Vikings as well. I think it makes too much sense for them not to take Derek Harmon here. So I think that's their pick.
I think a lot of people, though, to be honest with you, brother, are going to be really hoping for Travion Henderson at this pick here if the Pittsburgh Steelers do choose to pass on him. But I also agree with you. I think if you're talking about winning right away, you need somebody on that D-line over there. So I'm not going to argue with you anymore. Derek Harmon out of Oregon, going number 24 overall to the Minnesota Vikings. But
moving running back, real quick, with the running back portion of that, while I do think it makes a lot of sense for them to want a running back, this class is loaded. I mean, when you look at the running back ranking there, they can get one of these guys in the second round. One of Skattebo, Samson, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. One of those guys should be available for the Vikings later in the draft too. So I don't think they're missing out on a running back per se by taking Harmon in the first round.
Fair enough. I agree with you there completely. Then the Texans, man, oh man, only 2 needs in the first round, huh? Wide receiver and also on the line as well. We'll go ahead and pull up the best options here for this one. But anybody, right when you think, my man, of those 2 positions, wide receiver, O-line, which one is more of a dire need here for them at 25?
Well, offensive line is probably the most dire need for them because CJ Stroud was murdered last year. Dude was hit way too
Murder.
often for your franchise quarterback. So I think offensive line's the more dire need, but I do think wide receiver is a sneaky one. Like, I would not be shocked if they saw Luther Burden III or Egbuka still there and they ran to the table, ran to the podium announcing one of those guys. Because as of right now, Nico Collins is kind of it for CJ Stroud. And Nico Collins is phenomenal. One of the best receivers in football, but it can't just be Nico Collins. Like, they lost Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell will be gone all year with the lower body injury again. So I would not be shocked if they go wide receiver. But to me, offensive line is the more important need.
I think Stroud's going to want Egbuka here. Is that a fair prediction?
I think Stroud would love Egbuka. The Ohio State connection there. You get him another weapon. I think Stroud would be over the moon to have Egbuka as his teammate.
Are you surprised, though? Are we fools for leaving Luther Burden on the board here, or do you think there's a real chance that we are correct that he will still be available at 25?
I think there's a real chance he's still available at 25. The thing about the wide receivers this year is these two, for the most part, don't really answer a lot of what other teams need at the wide receiver position. These guys are a little bit more specialized in a certain way that hasn't fit very many people we've talked about so far. So it would not shock me if they're still available. It would not shock me if they're gone either. I wouldn't be shocked either way. I think both scenarios make a lot of sense, either with them going early or with them going kind of where they are right now with us.
All right, guys. Egbuka, Ohio State to Ohio State. Texans, number 25 overall. In my opinion, Bryson, that is a steal for the Houston Texans here. I've said it all show, I feel like, that this guy shouldn't be on the board after the 12th pick. Truly, but hey, here he is going 25 to the Houston Texans. Then you got the LA Rams picking at 26, tight end, tackle, linebacker, and corner. You see the best available on the board at this point. We'll go ahead and give it a little scroll, see if anybody jumps out to you guys on the board. But my man, are any of these names popping out to you at 26?
Yeah, I think they're going to go with Kelvin Banks, the tackle out of Texas. You just brought back Matthew Stafford. That offensive line is good, but you've got an aging tackle at the position already. I think you'd want to bring in some more depth and a guy who can start at either left or right tackle and really help out Matthew Stafford. Stafford's old. You don't want him getting hit too often. You don't want him running around too much for LA. I think their defense is fine. I know linebacker and corner is said to be a need for them. I think they like their young core on the defensive side of the ball, so I think they're going to stay away from that. I think they're going to try and get a tackle for Matthew Stafford. So I think they'll go Kelvin Banks.
What about Hurricanes tight end here, Elijah Arroyo? Do you think there's any world that they make this move?
I would not be shocked. He had a really good pre-draft process. He tested well. There's a lot of hype surrounding him right now. Tight end is a position of need for the Rams. Like, they do need another good pass-catching tight end on this team. I think the first round's a little rich for my blood for Elijah. I think he's more of a second-round tight end. But as tight ends, fall off the board, we saw the top two tight ends already go. Maybe teams freak out and they feel like they have to get that tight end because they don't want to lose out on him in the second round. I think that they're comfortable enough to say, we'll take a tight end later in the draft anyway. We'll take the best tackle available right now.
The other thing I'm going to agree with you on is it's just too early. It's just, you can't look at Banks sitting on this board and not take him and go Arroyo. Unless you're trading back and you're taking him at 31 or 32 and maybe the Chiefs or the Eagles come up and want this pick or something. Okay, maybe, but I agree with you. If we're talking best available player, man, you got to take Kelvin Banks Jr., the Houston or the Texas, the Texas long off the board here at 26 to the LA Rams. Then you got the Ravens picking here. Can they finally make it to a Super Bowl? I don't know. They're going to need a good pick here in the first round. Guard, edge, DB, but let's not forget the number 15 ranked player still available, Luther Burden III. Not that they need wide receiver, but Bryson, I'll tell you what, brother, I kind of think they do, to be honest with you. I mean, they don't need a wide receiver, but Zay Flowers, he had more bad games last year than he had good games. You got a couple other wide receivers getting a little bit older out there. You got Bateman, who, in my opinion, had an above average year for Bateman. I think he takes a small step back this year. Could Burden here, just because he's available, be a thought, or do you think there's a clear other guy that they're going to go with?
I think there's definitely I think they're going to think about it. I don't think they're just going to brush off Luther Burden like he's not worth the pick there at 27 overall. But like you mentioned, I think they're happy with their wide receiver position the way it is right now. I think they love Zay Flowers. Rashad Bateman had a breakout year last year. They signed DeAndre Hopkins. So I think that they think they're fine at wide receiver. So I don't think that's where they think they're going to go there. I think James Pierce, the edge out of Tennessee, one of the more talented players in this entire draft, but has some like motor concerns. He has some concerns about like effort and whether or not he loves football that much. So there's some off the field concerns you have with Pierce, but as a pure raw talent, there aren't very many people more talented than James Pierce. And if there's an organization and a culture that can get the most out of someone who maybe has a little bit of off field issues, the Ravens are about as good of a team you can go to. And
Steelers. But yeah,
Steelers are a good one for that too. But I think the Ravens would happily take on the challenge of getting Pierce to live up to his talent.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the consideration for Burden is going to happen, but I also agree with you that at that point, they just don't need him. And truly, I mean, Pierce to me is the next best available. Now, I think if Pierce is gone here and the next guy is like a quarterback or something that they don't want, and it's Amos or Burden, maybe at that point they go Burden. But even then, they still could use a DB anyway. So anyway, guys, locking in James Pierce Jr., the Vols getting one gone there, number 27 to the Baltimore Ravens. Then the Lions coming up in here at 28, wide receiver, guard, edge, linebacker, the four biggest needs for these guys here. Is it simple? Do you take Burden off the board here, or do you go ahead and look at a couple other guys? You could argue in this position that edge or linebacker is pretty important for them, but they're getting, obviously, their big-time pass rusher back coming off the injury here. I don't think they need edge. I don't really think they need linebacker. I know their defense had some issues last year in that middle of the field spot, so I could see it here. I don't think it's a first-round concern. To me, it comes down to, are they going to go O-line, or are they going to go Luther Burden III? And or, by the way, Menor, A.O. Menor is still available from Stanford as well.
I actually think they will go on the edge here. They need a lot of help at that position. Once their star pass rusher, who's now, his name is leaving me, I can't remember their star edge rusher's name, who broke his leg last year. They really just could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I'm blanking too. Oh, my God. I can picture his little blonde hair, his little face. The Wolverine. Anyway.
But as soon as he went down, they literally could not get to the quarterback. And so I think they're going to go edge here. I think it is a big position of need. And I'm going to go with an edge. You have to scroll down to that bottom of that line there that we see. I'm going to go with Mykel Williams, the edge out of Georgia. Dude's very talented. He's got a lot of the traits you like. You look at him, 6'5", 265. He's young. He has a lot of untapped potential there. I think he'd do really well on the opposite side of the edge and give them some depth at that position just in case their star isn't ready to go by the start of the season, or if they just need a good pass rushing duo. That division has a lot of good quarterbacks in it. There's a lot of good offensive lines in it now. So I think getting an edge makes a lot of sense for the Lions.
Aiden Hutchinson.
Thank you. God,
it was driving me nuts. It was driving me nuts. I was like, bro, come on, dog. I'm out here tripping. Okay, I'm sorry. Which name are we locking in here? Mykel Williams?
Mykel Williams.
Yep. Okay. I'm right there with you. I'm not going to argue there much. You could argue, obviously, both the guys coming out of A&M pretty decent as well there, but I also think it's almost hard to pick which of these two that you want to go with. So I almost think that coming out of Georgia here, obviously getting coached up from Kirby Smart and those guys over there, it makes a lot of sense. So Michael Williams going number 28 overall to the Detroit Lions. Then you got the Washington Commanders coming in number 29 overall, running back, guard, edge, and corner. I don't think they're going to go edge, so personally, I'm going to take that one out the leg here. But I think corner is very, very doable. You got Amos still available here. You got Morrison, who I think is a sleeper, still available. Running back, obviously not too many great options at this point, but Scattaboo is still sitting there. Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson still available as well. Or do they choose to protect Jaden just a little bit more there? What do you think they do?
I think they're going to leave offensive line on the board because they did go out and they got Laramie Tunsil from Houston. That kind of helped out that offensive line a lot. And there isn't really a guard, an interior offensive lineman worth a first-round pick in this draft, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I think offensive line's off the board. I actually do think they could go edge here. But this is your pick, so I'll let you leave edge off the board. So we're looking at the other options we were talking that you brought up. I think corner does make a lot of sense for the Washington Commanders. I think that they went out and they got Marshawn Lattimore last year. Didn't really work. He was hurt. Didn't play well when he came back. I think that they would really like to pair him up with a young corner. So I think Trey Amos out of Ole Miss makes a lot of sense personally if you're going to look at the defensive back position.
I got to throw out a little bit of a spite pick here.
Okay.
Burden has got to be being watched right now by the Eagles. Do you think this could be a wide receiver? I mean, look, I know they got Scary Terry, but I'm not too convinced. I know they got two pretty good wide receivers. Could use a little bit of depth here. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm just saying. I think Burden still being on the board here, I think it has to at least be in the tiniest bit of consideration.
I think it's definitely in the consideration for sure. If they didn't trade for Deebo Samuel, I think them trading for Deebo kind of took them out of the wide receiver position. Whether that's right or wrong, whether you think that Luther Burden would make them now the most dangerous wide receiver trio in the NFL or not, I think they would look elsewhere. I think they feel like they have the wide receiver position kind of locked up and in a good space. So I think they're going to look more defense. That defense needs a lot of help.
Well, I want to ask you really quickly, though, because, since you kind of shut me down there really quick and you said, well, since I'm not thinking edge, if you were going to go edge, what would you do here?
If I was going edge, I would go Shamar Stewart, the edge out of Texas A&M, the other one. He didn't have the production you would have liked, but he is another one of these guys. Every physical trait is there. 6'6", 290, athletic freak of nature. I think he needs a little bit of help kind of mastering his craft. And you go to a head coach like Dan Quinn, a defensive, really smart guy. I think he might be able to – and Dan Quinn, master of energy. Dan Quinn is an energetic guy. And I think he would get a lot out of Shamar Stewart with all those physical traits. And I think – Stewart's going to be a better NFL player than he was a college player.
Fair enough. I like what you're saying, but like I said, and you just kind of mentioned it, not necessarily the stats that I wanted. And I get that they have two great dudes coming out on the edge from A&M. So it makes sense why there's not one stud with these crazy numbers. Okay, I get it. It's just not enough for me to try it, but I don't disagree with you. I just don't think it's what they're going to do. I'm going to lock in. I'm sorry, bro. I'm doing it. Folks. I'm going to go over to the running back position here real quick. Give me Travion Henderson.
I like it.
I just don't think the guy's going to fall out of the first round, bro. I just really don't. So I'm gonna lock him in here. I think he's a steal at number 29. Moving on through here to number 30. The Bills, you are on the clock, my man. Now you can go ahead and take that edge guy if you want to take him now. Linebacker, corner. The Bills are looking defense. What do they do?
Yeah, I definitely think defense is where the Bills are going to be looking there. They could be a team to look at for Luther Burden, right? Amari Cooper, still a free agent. Who knows if they bring him back? Josh Allen doesn't have a ton of great weapons there in Buffalo. So I could see them, if Luther Burden falls to them at 30th overall, I think they're going to really look to build up that defense. They lost Von Miller this offseason, but they brought in Joey Bosa. So does that eliminate their need at edge? I personally don't think so. But I think they see Trey Amos there at corner, and I think they're going to go with him. I think they're going to go with the corner out of Ole Miss. Trey Amos, very productive, very good all-around corner, a guy who can play on the outside for them. They have a slot corner they really like in Buffalo already, so they can get Amos and really shore up that secondary.
There you go. I'm not going to argue with you on that one, brother. Amos, it is going down there. Ole Miss getting one going in the first round, number 30 overall, the Buffalo Bills. 2 more picks here for our first mock draft of 2 before the real draft. The Chiefs, the loser Chiefs, getting smacked down in the Super Bowl at the number 31, guard, tackle, D-line. But I can't help myself but think Patrick Mahomes is looking at Luther Burden and he's going, you guys are idiots. Thank you very much. I'll take another one of those. Do they go Luther here, or is there another name jumping off the board for you? I do want to throw out there. I know they're not necessarily looking for safety, but I do think that our man Winston Jr. here out of Penn State is a sneaky good player. I also believe that Norman Lott out of Tennessee could be a decent pick here on the D-line as well. But what do you think they're going to do?
Yeah, I agree with both those defensive players you just brought up there. I do think that, like, if Patrick Mahomes was running the team, I think he would probably like Luther Burden.
Sure.
But they have Rashee Rice coming back next year. They have Xavier Worthy. They have Hollywood Brown. So I think the team isn't going to look at Luther Burden there. I think they're going to look offensive line. The offensive line was the reason that the Chiefs would struggle last year. It was the reason they lost that Super Bowl in a lot of ways. They just could not stop anyone. And then they lost their best offensive lineman in free agency. They traded him to the Bears. I think they go Gray Zabel there, the tackle out of North Dakota State, because the great thing about Zabel is the dude doesn't have to play tackle. Like, really right now, the Chiefs feel pretty good about their tackle positions. They brought in the 49ers backup left tackle. He'll be their starting left tackle. They have a right tackle they kind of like. So Zabel can start in the interior. He can start as a guard. And if they need him to move to tackle because of an injury or guy not playing well or whatever, they can do that as well. So I think they're going to go offensive line, protect Mahomes. I think they're going to go with the most versatile guy on the board.
Look, brother, I know I switched you there at the very end, but I'm going to go ahead and give you Zabel, but I'm not going to have this conversation with you about number 32, bro. This is done. This is done, diddly done. This is Luther Burden III going to the Eagles here. I know they got Devontae. I know they got AJ, but you see it here. It's listed as a need. They have no depth at all at wide receiver. This is the 15th best player in the draft, available at 32. I will be shocked if they don't take him here, but just for fun, if there's another name on the board that you think is worth it, guard, edge, corner, what do they do?
Well, I think I do like the Luther Burden move there because those wide receivers are both expensive as well. So that gives them a reason. If Luther Burden hits for them, they can move on from A.J. Brown and get a load for a trade for him or something to that effect. I do think that the GM for the Eagles makes his living off of just drafting the best available edge or defensive linemen and just rotating them in and out. It's what won them the Super Bowl last year. It's what's made them one of the most dominant defenses in the NFL over the last couple of years. So I would not be surprised if he saw a Shamar Stewart, the edge out of Texas A&M. I would not be shocked if he saw him there and said, hey, we can take Shamar Stewart. Dude doesn't have to play right away for us. He doesn't have to be a starter right away for us. He can rotate in as a pass rusher and kind of gain experience as the season goes along. And then maybe groom into a starting edge position as he gets a little bit older. That's kind of just been the Eagles' way over the last couple of years. Take the best defensive lineman and have a rotating circle there on that position.
Yeah. And you do like Stewart.
Likes his edges.
Well, Bryson, technically my brother. It's your pick. So.
Oh, it is my pick. Okay.
It is your pick. It is your pick. My vote is Burden, but I understand if you don't do it here. It reminds me of Ladd McConkey last year. It's a receiver who shouldn't be there anymore. He's there at the very end. You got to take him.
Sure. I get that for sure. And Luther Burden is a first-round talent at the wide receiver position. Again, if we were doing it based on what we personally would do, I would 100% be behind you on Luther Burden. But we're drafting based on what we think the team will do. And Howie Roseman loves his defensive linemen. He loves his edges. He likes just having a revolving door at the trenches position. So I would do Shamar Stewart.
There you go. All right. Well, all right, guys. There is our final picks for you. We will go ahead and have this posted up on at Sports Forum CO tomorrow on Instagram and Twitter, as well as obviously on our YouTube channel. You guys can find all of our shows. Click that subscribe button. We appreciate you guys. Make sure to tune in. We're live daily doing shows for you guys. Sports betting, news, rumors, drafts, all sports, whatever it is. We got you covered at the Sports Forum. Riggs Tamburo, Bryson Owens, and make sure once again to join us on draft night for the NFL Live Draft Show. As a 4-hour show, roughly. We start about 15 minutes before the draft actually starts with the first pick, and we're live all the way through. So we'll see you guys then. SportsForumMedia.com. Take care, everybody.